Alrighty, I got this thing bolted up. It's a big old heavy piece of steel there. So if I come over here, this one-handed, get it in my engine stand. Perfect. I should be able to set the diff right in there. So let me put this down so I have both my hands. All right, it's in. And I've got a design flaw. I mean, overall, I like it. It holds it perfect. I can get in here to work, set everything in. You know, if you got to do the pinion bearings, you can rotate it upside down to do that. I've got to add probably another way to bolt this. So I'll probably make a plate that goes on here and has a cutout that runs underneath, and then you can bolt through these two yet. And that should really hold it in there nice if you flip it upside down to do the pinion. But that's a problem. I need to get to those adjusters. So what I think I'm going to do now is come underneath of here, underneath of here with like a spine. I'll just bend it and then I can 45 it. And then I think that'll brace this area up. And then pretty much what I'll do is cut this at like a 45 down to this plate and just run it out here to the end. Flush. And then there'll be a spine, and like I said, underneath of here to brace that so it doesn't bend. And then I'm going to make a plate of some sort to go out and around here. So I'll take another piece of angle and probably just make that work out, and then I can bolt it through here. And here, it'll catch these then. So I think that'll work, though. Yeah, so let me think about how I want to do this and get some material together, and then we'll start on some modifications with this. All right, so I made these pieces. I'm going to weld them on pretty much back at that corner on a 45. And then I'll gusset them real nice on the end. So they look nice. And then I can wallow out what I need to here, to get access to this. So I think that'll work. And then for this end piece, I grabbed another piece of angle here. So I'll just wallow out an elliptical where that's going to sit, and then I'll fine tune that. I don't want to go too far with this, so I'll start at a little bit and just take what I need to make it work around that diff. So let's get started on that. All right, I figured it out. Being stupid for a little bit, but I figured it out. I flipped it, so I didn't have to notch this out. And then I just re-drilled this and added this end piece in there. It's perfect. Holds it in there perfectly. So I'm going to zip this ring and pinion back out. Or I'm going to zip the ring and center back out here. Run this through the parts washer, clean it up, spray this whole thing out with Brake Clean. Get it all nice and cleaned. And then set these side adjusters up. So let's start by looking up some instructions and then zipping this thing apart. I'll get my table set up, I guess, or I might just use that table and some rags and get this thing apart. All right, I got it all disassembled, ran it through the parts washer, so it's all cleaned up. Gonna grab some assembly lube now, throw in these bearings because they're all cleaned up there. So throw some of that on there. There's still just like junk in there, We'll get it all cleaned up. But anyways, throw a little assembly lube on these then, and get it going back together here. So I got it set up here. I'll run a pattern on it then, but the pattern I think is going to be fine because we didn't really play with too much of it. But if you watch there, it's 8/1000ths. So, and I'm good with that on these. These are, I believe, factory gears, but I'm good with 8/1000ths. We're going to end up putting like probably 5-something gears in this thing later on if we're going to stay with that 1.3 liter. So now I got to preload these bearings. So I'm going to leave this on I'm going to rotate these a turn on this side and a turn on that side. And then lock these caps all the way down. And that should keep everything from moving. Okay. So 8,000s backlash, and that's our pattern, which, like I said, I'm good with. So pretty well centered. Good on that. On the coast side, or on the drive side, it's probably a little deep, but centered. And I'm good with that. So, like I said, it's going in a pretty low horsepower, mainly crawler. So, and it's the spool. So drivability, not a big deal. So now I got to pull this thing apart. Zip the brake calipers off, the knuckles, or the bearings out here at the end, pull the whole brake assembly out, and then we can set that diff in, slide it all back together. So let's start getting this thing apart. Okay, this is all pulled apart. Axles are out, laying down there. So I'm going to get the diff out of the stand, set it in here, and bolt this guy up so it's not going anywhere. And then it's a Sunday, and I promise to spend some time with the family. So I'll probably bolt that in and just slide the axles in. Actually, I'll probably leave the axles out. I'll probably just set this thing in so I can't get any dirt in here. And then we'll finish putting it together tomorrow, and then get it over there on our diff rack. All right. Well, that's what I'm calling quits for tonight. Diff's in. Looking good. So get the axles in tomorrow. I'll button this thing up, pull it off of here, and throw it over on the axle stand. And then we got to pull off and start pulling off parts of Saturn, and then we'll get back on that front axle. So